I'm Felina.
And I'm Summer.
And you are listening to Broken Broken.
Because we're both.
The podcast about living your best life by getting real.
Hey, broken people. This is Summer.
And this is Felina calling in remotely today.
And today I have with me Annie. You may remember her from episode 5.
Hello.
Welcome, Annie.
Thank you.
So, Felina had this amazing idea about talking about, what did you call it? The mom bod?
The mom bod, yeah. And I called it the apron. At least that was my defect, or quote-unquote defect, that I call my little pooch from having my C-section. The mother's apron. I think I'd read that term somewhere online, and I was like, ugh, it sucks.
I don't know if I like that term, but...
it exists, but I don't really like it. It makes me sound like an old spinstress that, bakes all the time. I don't know. I mean, not that, baking's bad. It just... makes me feel old. Am I going to like it? We can come up with a new term.
You're like, I'm not at granny status yet. Give me a minute.
It's like permanent granny panties. I don't know.
Yeah, and I mean, that's what, because we talked about this for a minute when Carmen was on, and that's what she was saying, because she has a waxing business. Okay. And she's like, I assure you, that is extremely common. So, because I didn't have a C-section, but I have the permanent pooch, because I went back to law school the day after I got out of the hospital with my last one. And so when you're up and around too much, you damage those muscles and they can't fit back together. So the only way to fix that is surgically, or you live with it.
Yeah, I honestly don't even probably know what's going on down there under all the fat. Because I didn't have a C-section either. And after I had my youngest, I really wasn't that overweight. But when I went to work full time, then I had an almost 2-year-old, a 4-year-old, and then the 8-year-old that was my stepdaughter that we had all the time. And then I went to work full time. And it was I just put on so much weight between the stress and changing, being just so much busier, and eating out more definitely played a part in it if you're gone all the time. And so even though I've been down closer to where I was after I had my youngest, I'm still not even sure what's going on with the muscles because I put on so much fat around my middle.
They're kind of hidden.
Yeah, I'm not really sure what's under the tire anymore. It'll be.
That's a terrible way to put it. Oh,
I'm just saying. Right now I'm back to I'm trying to eat healthier, which really isn't as much about the weight as it is. I don't sleep as good. I don't sleep as good when I'm heavier. I start snoring. There's a lot of actual physical things that make me miserable. My mobility changes, which I hate. Because I gained so much weight around the middle. It is like wearing a tire.
And that's where you...
And so I think this year when I lose it, and the goal is to start doing strength training, I'm done with cardio. Okay, if the apocalypse comes, I'm just going to die. But I will be fit. That's my goal is... I just want to be stronger, but cardio does not work for me. So it'll be interesting if I can meet that goal, let's say in a year and a half. What is actually under this? I don't know.
It's an interesting question.
It'll be a surprise.
So how do you... Surprise! What a fun surprise.
It may be good, it may be bad, I don't know.
If there's any gems out here listening, we just gave you a great marketing strategy right there.
Find out what's underneath that fat suit.
Oh, God.
Can we make this a contest and let people just submit their hashtags?
Oh, that would be awesome.
Yeah.
Please tag us and give us hashtags for this. That'd be great. So how do you become, I don't know, comfortable with your I mean, the things, our bodies change when we have kids. There's nothing we can do about that.
I think when I look around,
okay with that?
Because I work, with divorce people in child custody, and a lot of divorces in middle working class or upper middle class, and they put so much value on what people look like. I mean, you think about the term, how many times has someone told you, she looks so nice. No,
yeah,
she's fucking pretty.
Right.
That doesn't mean she looks nice. What you look like on the outside has nothing to do with the actual value of who you are as a person.
Yeah.
And I just think at some point I realized that everybody else that was magically super pretty and fit and thin, that they tended to kind of struggle more with who they were on the inside. And I kind of feel like I'd rather struggle with on the outside than on the inside, because I don't place as much value on what I look like.
Shifting perspective.
That's wonderful. I really like that perspective. And that's how it should be. I mean, the pressure of society to I like that you pointed out that, like, the pressure of society to be beautiful, it really has its consequences for people who are pretty and attractive, and it's easy for them. They don't know who they are on the inside, and that is a really huge challenge as well. But yeah, I mean, I like that perspective.
Yeah, because a lot of them, I mean, a lot of people who, have taken that next level, like, not just like, oh, naturally pretty and lean. That's genetics.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like winning the lottery. You just did, okay?
Right.
And then there's a whole other group of people who are obsessed with how they look, which is a lot of what I see in the office. Are these women don't even have jobs, and they literally go to the gym like an hour and a half a day. I cannot imagine having the expandable time in my life.
No, me either.
To do an hour a day.
That's one of the hindrances of
Mm-hmm.
having, a busy life and kids and providing for your kids and all that. I mean, yeah. And it also is a factor where we don't put as much importance on ourselves. Like, we don't put ourselves first when we should, because in order for us to be any good to anybody else, we have to take care of ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I see a lot of women, and I've been guilty of it as well, where I have just given
Oh,
to
yeah.
where I'm so ran down that I look up and I've got big bags under my eyes, I've gained 10 pounds, and I'm hardly sleeping, and it can happen really quick too. Like, just periods of stress and all of that. Taking care of ourselves is so important, but it's hard when you can't find the time and you got kids and all that. It's a constant struggle that I think women deal with a lot more than men, and it's detrimental to our health that we can't find more balance.
It is, and it's really hard because I'm married, but I'm married to somebody that is, again, in a freak gene pool of a hyper metabolism. He's very thin, and I mean, literally eats whatever he wants and the worst crap imaginable.
Really?
I mean, like, it's not like, oh, he eats healthier but more. No, he does not. He eats nothing but processed sugar and lives off of biscuits and gravy, fried chicken, burritos, and processed cheese and cereal. I mean, like, he eats more in calories and snacks, okay, than I do my entire calories for the day, and he's really thin.
Right.
So it does not help living with people who, view your healthy cooking as a punishment.
Right. and can we talk about the fact that thin does not equal healthy? I see those words used interchangeably all the time.
Yes, it's true.
And you see, if you read the comment section of the internet,
no!
on every fat shaming, on every photo that they fat shame, and that's the first thing that they say. It's like, that's unhealthy. You're promoting an unhealthy lifestyle. Like, actually,
I have totally seen. She's a perfect
it can change
example.
Your risk factors, but it does not equal. Thin does not equal healthy.
No, it doesn't. And I've seen big, healthy people too, who were bigger, who worked out, who ate good. I mean, that's just their part of the genetics.
Right.
But I know where I'm at, like where my body is right now, is not in that healthy section.
But if you got down to thin, you wouldn't be healthy.
No, and technically my goal weight is technically still overweight. I remember that was part of what triggered a lot of weight gain when I first started going back to work was going in to get birth control pills, which is, at that age, really the only time you were going to the doctor was probably like an annual exam, was with me anyways. And so I went in and they started griping me about my weight, and I was not very big at all. I was maybe a size 10 or 12.
Yeah, see, that's where I'm at.
And they literally were telling me I was obese, and I left there destroyed because I didn't feel obese. To me, that was like a really dirty, I wasn't. It was a really dirty word. And it's because if you put me on that little chart that they have,
the BMI chart,
I have way too much, muscle mass, and I can never weigh what they say I'm going to weigh. So, my goal weight is only 180.
Right.
I mean, and I'm 5'6", and it's like, I know if I get there, I would be very happy, and I don't care anymore what the doctor says.
So I'm 5'6", and I'm like at 173, something like that. So I'm probably close to what your goal weight is, and I lost about 30 pounds like a year ago, something like that, and I haven't been able to shake the baby weight forever. I mean, my daughter's 9. I started eating keto. I just started focusing on what I was eating instead of exercising, because I was killing myself exercising and it wasn't working.
And I struggle with, I have to be super careful in our house because both of the girls are very petite, naturally thin, and so I had to be so careful whenever I would, quote, diet, to not make it about what I looked like, because I didn't want them to feel like I wasn't okay with how I looked, and I did not want them to feel like you had to be curvy to be pretty. Because that's kind of an ongoing thing right now. And both of them, one's 22 and one's 14, they both bring that up all the time. That right now is the standard of beauty has actually switched back a little more to being that curvy. You can't make yourself look like that. You're either born like that or you don't. You're either born that thin, curvy, or you're not. There is no way to make that happen. And so I always am so self-conscious about how my words could affect them, because I do not want them to ever feel like because they're thin, that's not good. And I still want them to eat healthy. Right. Even though they're thin, they should be eating healthy. Right. And I'm lucky. The younger one is really good. She loves vegetables. She does love sugar, like candy stuff. But is in track, because she's in summer track, so I don't nitpick that. But because she eats so many vegetables and healthy meats, but the older one, oh my God, that child lives off of macaroni and cheese still and chicken nuggets.
Yeah. And I think thinking about the messaging we give to kids is huge, because that's part of what happens with my internal dialogue, because I was always naturally thin when I was young. And so now, but once I started getting chronically ill, that's when I gained weight. But it's because, and I've lost down several times, and then I realized when I'm at that weight in the BMI where they say I'm supposed to be, I'm sick constantly. My immune system does not work, and so I'm sick. So I have to stay a little bit above that. But there was a long time that I had, this internal thing about I struggled with, if I was happy with how I looked, because when I was a kid, when my mother put on weight, Dad would make comments. He would call her Buffalo. He would make whale jokes. He would tell her she needed to lose weight. And he would always
I cannot believe he survived.
Well,
my dad used to say to me, my dad said to me directly, nobody's going to want to marry you because you're too fat. You need to lose some weight.
Oh my God.
Yeah, anything's wrong with that statement.
and Dad would say would be like, "Oh, I'm just joking," right? How they do in the jokes, and
my dad was like, "Nope, I'm not kidding."
Well, Dad
didn't even try to glaze it over in the guise of a joke,
right?
Someone will marry you. That's your value, and no one's going to want to do that, Chatty. Like, that was the
right.
direct message.
Right. And Dad's thing was, well, she was thin when I married her. I wouldn't have married her if she was this big. And, like, she was a child when you married her. So let's go there. Because, you know, I mean, she was a child bride. Of course she was thin. She wasn't even grown yet. Like, and, you know, she still looked like a child. And so, like, I remember when I was a kid, what was I, like, maybe 7 or 8, maybe a little older, she got kidney stones from taking the damn grapefruit diet pills. And she was, like, constantly on diet pills and stuff. And so I was always like, I never want to diet. Because there's such a negative association with dieting with me because
I feel
all
like
of that.
If we had never heard the word diet before, and we had never tried to diet one time, I've thought about this in depth. I would probably actually weigh less.
Right,
because I feel like because I feel like every time you try to get put in that hole, there's more pressure. People tend to get more judgy when you're doing it. Mm-hmm. You know, you hear little comments here and there. Should you be eating that? You know, and it's like, and then you slide off into worse, and your body just doesn't handle it very good.
Mm-hmm. So I think it's about changing the way that, I mean, I personally have been trying to change the way that the word diet is used. Like, this is my diet, as in, like, this is how I eat.
Yeah. Right. This is like, my lifestyle. How I eat.
This is my lifestyle. This is not a fad. This is not a thing I'm going to do for a little bit. Like, this is how I eat. Like, I eat low carb and high protein and high fat because that's what works for me. That's my diet. It works for my body. And, you know, not everybody's the same. And figuring out what works for you and what you're, like, you know, and then sticking to it as, like, a lifestyle. And that's how my daughter sees it. Like, I don't use the word diet very often. She just knows, you know, how we eat.
Right.
And you know, she knows that the reason I started eating keto was not because I was unhappy with my body. It was because I have fibromyalgia, and the sugar and carbohydrates were just causing me to be inflamed all the time.
Yeah.
And so by cutting that out, you know, the weight loss was just a side effect. But she knows that I started having more energy and started being able to do more with her, and that's what she, you know, associates with it. So I like try to get her to eat healthy and focus on how it makes her feel. Right. We don't ever talk about how it makes us look. Like, that's never a conversation.
Yeah, I think that's very important because we are helping them create their relationship with food.
Yeah,
it is.
I mean, looking at it as, this is how I take care of my body, as opposed to this is what's going to affect that number on the scale.
Well, and I've called out parents even in the last couple of years who try to force their kids to eat everything on their plate when they're 3, 4, 5, 6 years old. Yes. And it's like, I mean, I can't stop myself. I'm like, why would you do that? Like, if they were hungry, they would eat. Forcing kids at a young age to eat everything on their plate sets a terrible, terrible standard for what food really means.
Right.
Food should be about nurturing your body and providing it food, not forcing somebody to sit there and eat. Now, we had a rule where, okay, you didn't finish your food, that was fine. You don't get ice cream 5 minutes later.
Right.
Like, if you turn around and ask me for ice cream, I'm going to say, clearly your body is still hungry for food. You need to go sit down and eat.
Right.
But I hate seeing, and I think most of us grew up where it probably wasn't super healthy, as we didn't have a ton of money. And you're thinking like canned veggies even, and all that, you know, fried food and, you know, white bread, and you were the expectation, and and milk and cereal and all this stuff that's really terrible for your body.
It really is.
Cheerios.
Yes, it's so bad for your body, and in most kids.
They're the SpaghettiOs.
Yes. They're forced.
With the sliced franks, thank you very much.
Yeah, they're like forced to eat all their food, and I learned, like, when my kids were little, I found myself doing that, and I thought, no, this is terrible.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, this is part of what's wrong with me. When I go out to eat dinner somewhere, I'm like, well, I paid all this money for this food. I have to eat it. No, you don't.
Take it home.
You don't have to do that. But it's that trained behavior from when I was a kid of you're supposed to eat all the food on your plate. And I think that most kids their bodies really aren't made to have like big meals like adults have, and that's why they don't eat so much.
Your stomach is only like the size of your fist or something.
Yeah.
I mean, when you think about how little ours is, even, and we're expecting kids to eat adult portions and beyond, and you will eat it all. No,
well,
that's
if
not
you
healthy.
compare a toddler, okay, to like a longer distance runner, their diets, they eat small, tiny, like 200 calorie to 400 calorie meals, like 2 to 4, like all the time, right? Like that's how they keep their metabolism where it's at, this high energy. You think about what a toddler's, their body is doing. It's the same thing. That's why they're always hungry, but it's like parents fight with them about not eating these big meals.
Because they want them to eat 3 big meals.
Yeah,
Oh, the 3 big meals thing is stupid.
It is.
Not, like, it's totally not how we're supposed to eat.
It's not
like,
how our bodies work at all.
No.
I think it's the worst habit. I think that's really where a lot of the weight gain for me came from, is getting over hungry, being too busy, and then sitting down and eating way too much food at one time, because I'd be over hungry, tired, starving, and then it's like, oh, you know, my body is like, oh shit, something's wrong in the world, we're all about to die, clearly we need to get fat. And it did that very efficiently.
Your body's very good at that. Well, and my grandmother would, and she tells you very clearly when you're upset, anytime you're upset, she bakes for you.
Oh,
and so it's always like sweet whatever. And she would tell you that. She's like, when you get upset, you eat something, or ice cream. She'd give you ice cream too. You eat something like this and it makes you feel better. I'm like, well, that's not damaging at all. Thanks. Now I eat my feelings.
So, and not just that, but probably every celebration. Yes. Right? Every time you did something good, or graduation, or your birthday. Again, so it's when we're super happy and when we're sad, we're supposed to be eating, which, let's face it, that's all the time.
I'm eating the worst food imaginable. So yeah, so now I eat my feelings. So thanks a lot, Granny. Yeah. I'm like,
I hate the candy being given as an award or reward.
I know.
Yes. It drives me insane. Like, Sophia ended a piano lesson the other day, and like we were out the door, and her piano teacher comes out and is like, "Oh, you forgot your piece of candy," and I'm like, "Why are you giving my child candy? You're giving her poison." I was in a bad mood. I kind of went on a rant, like in the car. My poor kid, like she's gonna be terrified. Like she's gonna be more inclined to like try heroin over sugar, because I have like instilled the fear in her.
It is though. It's the devil. I agree. It's terrible.
So bad. I'm like, don't give her candy, God. Just make her do it.
Why are you
it's like seeing, it's like seeing those kids and their parents are complaining about being hyperactive as they have sweet tea in their sippy cup, and they're like eating Fruit Loops, and you're like, really? I mean, don't you think there could be a slight chance that behavior is linked with the direct, you know, line of sugar that child is receiving?
Nah, it can't be that.
It can't be that. Gotta be.
Where's that
else.
rolling?
Exactly. Oh my goodness. Oh, it's just hard, and our lifestyle is so different. You know, even from like when I was in high school, we had, you know, there's animals to take care of, and we were just busier. Now with the phone, you know, scrolling Facebook and reading, and I just feel like getting active is a problem. And I've developed a sun allergy, and that doesn't help either.
Right,
because I
can't get outside.
It's kind of hard, and I don't really like exercising outside. So the few things I did like doing outside that were active, I've now can't really do.
Well, when we hit the lottery and we quit our jobs, we can.
Yeah, but I just think
it's under an hour and a half a day.
I mean, I just think that I decided at some point that my weight loss had nothing to do with what I looked like. I wanted to feel better, because I really did realize when I lost the weight last time how much better my sleep was, how much more energy I had. And a lot of it, like you said, I agree, cutting out the sugar and the processed carbs and all of that really changed how I felt on a daily basis. And to me, that's the motivation. It's when I get all depressed and bummed out and I devour cupcakes in parking lots, cry in the car kind of thing, then you fall back off that wagon. It's like, it's a serious drug, man.
My food is usually good. My food intake, like, I make healthy meals and stuff. It's the damn Dr. Pepper, Mountain Dew, or whatever. I'll do good. I'll quit and I'll be good. I'm like a junkie, man. I'll do good for a while and then I'm like, one won't hurt. And then there's like, I'm mainlining it in the morning. So
that's me with like my one cigarette a week. I'm like, like I gotta have one. You know, I'm not a smoker, but damn it, I gotta have a cigarette every now and then. I get wasted.
Yeah, and alcohol is another problem. I think that, you know,
you can have
I went to beer. Well, but see, remember, my husband's an alcoholic, and he's fine. The beer doesn't bother him in the house at all, which is why I had started drinking more beer because I didn't want to bring vodka and stuff into the house. I mean, it's very clear I should not. Right. And so, but drinking, especially the craft beer, the dark beer, I mean, I just instantly gain weight. And even if I count calories, eat healthy, do everything right, if I have, like, let's say 6 beer over the weekend, you know, I will not lose weight. I will likely gain weight. No matter what. And I mean, I realized it's just that sensitive that I absolutely cannot drink pretty much anything. Like you said, the vodka stuff isn't as bad, but it's much harder for me I just don't. But
yeah, I do like whiskey and soda water, and that's about all I can drink, and I sip on it, you know? I'll have like one whiskey, and for whatever reason, whiskey, like good quality whiskey, doesn't fuck with my weight loss. Or my stomach, because I've got some major issues with just my stomach, and I love beer, and I, like, when I drink
it tears your stomach up. Yeah.
It tears my stomach up. Yeah.
It feels so bloated.
If you drink a lot of beer, does that give you inflammation problems?
Yeah. I mean, it's the gluten in it as well.
Oh, it is.
But
and the sugar.
Yeah.
But, you know, spirits not mixed with sugar aren't terrible.
Right.
You know, whiskey not mixed with, you know, it's the mixing of alcohol with more sugar. Yeah, I can't do rum. Rum's freaking made from sugar cane. It's, like, terrible for me. And, I mean, vodka, I don't do well on either, but it's made from potatoes. I don't know what the fuck whiskey is made from, but it doesn't bother me.
Corn?
Is it?
Well, there's a rye. There's a rye whiskey, and then
I think normally it's corn. Yeah.
Well, maybe that's
which is weird because that's still pretty starchy. I mean, corn is still like.
But corn doesn't give me an inflammation problem where the other starches do. So there's got to be something in the breaking down.
Yeah, but if you eat a whole potato, that's a whole potato. Can you imagine eating the same amount of corn, like weight-wise, versus a potato?
Yes, I can.
That would be. Okay, I don't think I've ever had that much corn at one time.
Meat. You have corn, and you got cornbread, and you've got your.
But the potatoes don't make me, like, a real potato doesn't make me bloat, like a baked potato or a steamed potato.
Really? It does me. I can't eat potatoes either.
And the type of potato can make a difference too.
The type, because they're more starchy.
Like the golden potatoes, they're not as bad as the white potatoes.
Yeah.
Like red potatoes.
Yeah, the red ones aren't as bad.
There's like. Oh, sweet potatoes. That's the word I was looking for. Sweet potatoes don't bother me at all.
Yeah.
But they're also lower in carbohydrates. I think it's just the sheer carbohydrate content that bothers me because my body converts it to sugar.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I mean, for whatever reason, whiskey doesn't bother me. And so I drink mostly whiskey or red wine every now and then. That doesn't seem to bother me too bad either. But that's about it. I don't really drink a whole lot of anything else. And even if I overdo it on those things, it's not like those things in and of themselves make me gain weight, but they somehow like fuck with my like function. So like my body stops like being healthy and like you know, breaking shit down like it's supposed to, you know.
Kind of throws everything out of balance.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm actually like not drinking right now. I like fucked up. I had an interview where I had to drink at the interview. It's a thing. But which is a whole societal problem. But
Kind of is, but yeah.
It is, yeah.
It's such an integrated part of, like, just business. But
if you don't drink at all, they assume you're an alcoholic.
I haven't been drinking. What?
I said, and if you don't drink at all, they assume you're an alcoholic or can't handle it, so they don't hire you. Like, we literally were sat down and told this in law school. They're like, carry around a cup. One all night, because you don't want to have too much, but you can't not drink at all, because then they're gonna...
I don't know. I think my new crowd's gonna just, like, smoke weed and not drink, and, like, you're gonna just be weird if you don't smoke weed. I want that to become the new...
But then I can't be weird anymore. I liked being weird.
All those dumb weirdos who don't smoke pot. I'm just kidding.
I'm not.
I'm just, like, thinking of board meetings, like, with a hookah in the middle.
Pass it around.
Welcome to corporate America.
That's how new ideas arise. That is how...
Right? Can you imagine how much more chill board meetings would be? Ooh, I want this. I have asked people, what do you suppose the ethics are on setting up a diffuser in the room when people come in? Because everybody just needs to calm down.
I'm going to petition for the boardroom bomb to be
yes!
a thing.
It's a thing. We should make it a thing.
Yeah.
I mean, but if you think about it, that's the equate of what they're doing when they're all drinking.
I know.
I mean, it's like they don't seem to understand that.
Seriously. Yeah.
Most of them don't, but it really is, and it's a weird social, expectation. It's strange.
Right? Yeah. And, like, I play music, and, I'm either with attorneys who drink a lot or I'm with musicians who drink a lot. I'm, like, fucked. Like, how can I escape it? And so I just, like, hole up and don't go out, and that's the only way I can not drink, because I have no willpower if it's in front of me to just, like, and it's not even, like, the alcohol itself, it's just I want to hang and have a good time, And usually I'll, like, show up stoned, and then I'm like, I'll just get really fucking stoned before I go out, and then I won't want to drink. And then I get out and I'm like, sure, that beer sounds great.
Right, because when you're stoned, that seems like a good idea.
So good,
and then you're cross-faded and just kind of like, oh, this was really terrible. When you feel awful the next morning.
There's no way to gauge your actual level of drunkenness when you start out stoned until it's too late.
You're right.
I mean,
so
that's
true.
The problem is it's kind of like, it's a very unpredictable scenario when you combine the two, and then all of a sudden if you're not stoned anymore, it's like, oh shit, I'm this level drunk. Like, I did not want to be this level.
The other problem is I'll forget how many beers I've already had. Like, I'll be like, I'm just gonna have one or like two. Like, I'll set myself a super reasonable limit, and then I forget how many I've had. Like, I'll have my second one. I'm like, was that my first one? Like, I need another one.
Especially when they're clearing them.
Yes,
like, don't clear the empties. I need to keep count.
And my short-term memory is not so good in those moments. So,
you get the bill. I like it when you get the bill and you're like, holy shit.
Like,
how many was that?
Right? You're like, who's been drinking on my tab?
This can't be right. This isn't possible.
My bar tab, like, passes this, like, threshold. Like, you can really tell how drunk I am because it'll go from, like, 4 drinks for myself to, like, 18 because I will get so drunk that I'm generous. And I'm like, okay, everybody a shot. So, like, my tab is either, like, real reasonable, like, $10, or it's, like, 70. And I'm like, there's no in between.
There's that tipping point where she's just, everybody gets a drink. She becomes the Oprah at the bar.
I'm not rolling in money or anything. I just like to be generous. I'm a generous drunk.
So drinking at those business meetings probably not a good plan.
No. Well, I think it might be different if I was actually thinking about it in terms of money.
Right.
Instead of just wanting everybody to have fun.
Make everybody be happy.
Yeah. Like, you need a drink? Oh, you spilled your drink? I'll buy you a drink. What's wrong with me?
She's such a nice drunk.
Oh. She is, man. I'm stingy.
It's ridiculous.
But I don't really like drinking out with people either. So for me, it's not. It's like I will literally have one because after that, I don't drive at all, even after one. So, and drinking in public tends to make me more nervous.
Makes me anxious.
There's a few exceptions to that. Bourbon Street is one of them. Okay, like New Orleans, there's no rules when
She's
it comes
like, I
to
feel
public
completely
drinking.
safe in New Orleans.
Well, surprisingly, you do because everybody is probably drunker than you are, so you don't
it's the
have
relativity.
to worry about it at all. Yeah,
Vegas too, I would assume.
yeah.
I mean,
So I don't feel the need. I'm much better reined in public. I just don't. But I also don't like to socialize very much publicly
At all, ever.
No,
'Cause humans
exactly.
are terrible. Who would talk to people?
I mean, just saying. There's that. God.
So, Felina, you mentioned your apron. I hate that term. It's terrible.
Yeah,
so,
that's not
we're
a good term.
granny panties now.
Right? So, did you struggle with that at all? Because I know you mentioned that before, like, you know,
Well,
like you don't have a
like,
problem with wearing a bikini, and, you know, a lot of women are like, I need to cover up. So,
I don't anymore. I used to.
You did?
I mean, I got that horrible mom apron and like stretch marks all of my stomach, and I still wear a bikini because I
I
don't
have
give a
stretch marks
fuck.
too, all over the place.
Because it's my body and I like it and I don't care.
Mhm.
But it took me a while to get that attitude. You know, I didn't always feel that way. I don't know. I just I remember feeling really self-conscious about having sex with someone other than my husband after we got divorced for the first time. Because like I was like, you know, I was never like super thin by any means, but like never had this extra piece of floppy skin. You know, I was like, what the fuck? I don't want to show this to anybody. But I don't know. I guess I just don't care anymore. Like it's just part of me. And after, you know, dealing with like childhood trauma and therapy and whatever, like it just became a non-factor. You know, when you get comfortable in your own skin, you just like every part of yourself, and it doesn't matter anymore. I don't know. I mean, everybody's gonna have their thing that they don't like about themselves, and it's not about like fixing that thing, which like I think a lot of women who aren't dealing with, you know, the underlying issues of why they're trying to kill themselves to look good, you know, don't understand. Like, it's not about fixing the outside, it's about fixing the inside so that you love the outside just as it is.
Right. Deal with those root causes instead of the symptoms.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like, I needed to go to therapy to deal with, you know, the shit my dad had said to me that made me not feel accepting of my own body and seek male attention and male approval. You know, I needed to deal with that and face that and, you know, just deal with a bunch of shit, like my mom not being around, my mom always being self-deprecating around me about her own self, and, you know, breaking patterns and wanting better for my kids, so I don't do that, you know.
Right.
I have to tell a proud mom moment.
Okay.
You know, I've been, like, harping on, like, positive body image forever with my daughter, like, since she was tiny, and, one day a friend of mine was over here at my house. I've got a pool. I'm sitting on my back porch right now staring at my pool, and, and my friend was on a floaty, and she like hopped on it, and Sophia was like 5 or 6 years old, and she hopped on it and she sank, and Sophia goes, "Why did you sink?" And she goes, "Because I'm fat." And Sophia looked at her and she goes, "No, you're not, and don't say that about yourself. You should love yourself just the way you are, and you're beautiful." And like she just like spouted that out, like that was like her immediate response to someone body shaming themselves at 6 years old. And at that moment, I was extremely proud of myself and her, because that's the message that everyone needs to learn. And if my 6-year-old daughter has already figured that out, then, you know, she's going to survive in this world. Like, she's going to thrive. She's going to do well. You know, she's not going to let that kind of shit get in her way, which a lot of women do. I did, you know? So that's my proud mom moment. I tell that story a lot because it was awesome.
Yeah, I don't know when I got there. I know I used to be kind of self-conscious.
It's probably getting older too.
And then, and because I had somebody ask me the other day, the reason I was asking that was I had somebody ask me the other day, well, don't you think more guys would be interested if you were more, you know, thinner, like more, and I'm like...
Did you tell them to fuck off?
Well, no, I mean, she was being genuine because she's struggling with her weight, and mostly because now she's not overweight, but she has finally finished developing, and I'm like, you're just grown now. Like, this is your body. There's nothing wrong with your body. You're not overweight, and you are, fixating on things that, like, your body's healthy and you're strong right now. That's not a bad thing. You don't need to lose healthy muscle mass just because, you think you should look like you did when you were 15. And
right.
And so she was being very genuine because that's what she's been struggling with is won't men find me more desirable if I'm thinner? And I'm like, but why would I want those men?
Yeah, find
exactly
the way you are. The men, I think there used to be a peer pressure on men that they were expected to like the thin girl. You know what I mean? But I feel like that's also been changing. Like, men are becoming more accepting of their own personal preferences. When I just kind of feel like for every body type, both male and female, there's a match. There's somebody who likes that. That's
right.
It's
There's such variation
sexually. And like I've met men who are just like, I want a big ass booty.
Right.
Like
there's people with all sorts of preferences. There's such a variation that there's no reason to harm ourselves to try to fit the ideal.
And it goes both ways.
Anyway.
And it goes both ways.
Absolutely, it does.
Like women too. Like I like thin guys.
Oh,
It is not. And I can look at women. And I like curvier women and something. Women. It depends on how they're carrying themselves, how they look. Like those kind of things are big.
Attitude and confidence goes.
It does. But I think with men, I do tend to like, and I always have thinner, more naturally thin men. And I think there's a lot of women who like really big dudes. I think it's gross. Like, no, and that's not body shaming. It's just like there's something physical about it that actually affects me. Like that, like my mom loves like these big barrel, like roly-poly, hairy.
Oh, I can't do hairy.
But you know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like that big guy, like
the big teddy bear.
Like she, and I don't think she realized how offensive it was because my husband's a lot smaller than me, and he was even when I was very thin. And she made a comment about how her husband, he's passed on, but she was like, well, he always said it was fine. I could get as big as I wanted as long as I wasn't bigger than him. And I just looked at her and I was like, are you fucking serious right now? Like, how is that not offensive to me?
Right.
But to her, it was like she likes bigger guys.
Yeah.
So, yeah, she's bigger, but she likes big guys. Like, to me, it doesn't bother me that I'm bigger than my husband. If that would be an insecurity within me. That doesn't have to do with him. That has to do with my own insecurity. Right. If you can't sleep with somebody that weighs less than you, that's your weird mental thing about being a chick, about how we are expected to be smaller than men. Fuck you.
I think that's the same a lot with women with the height thing too.
Yeah, we talked about that the other day. It has to be a tall guy. Has to be taller than me. Why?
I always remind them
if
you ever watch
good, who cares?
Right? Well, there's a quote in if you ever watch the show Bones where Angela says short guys have better leverage. So I always remind them of that. Like, short guys have better leverage.
I just never put that much importance on height.
I don't. Yeah, it doesn't matter to me. I think I do prefer like small. I guess thinner guys. And I've decided I think it's because I'm scared of men. So I like men who look a little bit less threatening and like the damage that they can do to me is going to be less.
I mean,
which is irrational, people. It is. I need you to understand that.
Hey, ladies.
Yeah, I just think everybody has their preference and some of it may be emotional reasons, it could be all kinds of different reasons, but it runs on both sides. Men have preferences. Okay. Some men prefer petite women, and that's good because there's that available. And some
don't shame your female friends.
Right. So stop shaming each other and stop harming yourself to fit an external ideal. Do what's good for you and what's healthy.
And that's the whole point is, we really just need to stop shaming ourselves, stop shaming others and be more accepting of our bodies just the way they are.
Absolutely.
And do things for the right reasons, like you're talking about, it being health reasons, and setting positive examples for your children. It's not about what we look like on the outside. It's how we take care of ourselves on the inside and nourish our bodies.
You can contact the podcast at brokebrokenpodcast@gmail.com. The Broken Podcast can be found on Twitter @BrokeBrokenShow, on Instagram and Facebook @BrokeBrokenPodcast.